you go. Ontario police flying right over the apartment just like they were doing while 55 was being documented. They're flying right over the apartment, amplifying the helicopter activity while I'm on the podcast. There's the fake moon. Okay, that's how you know that they're demons, and they're targeting by virtue of placement over my apartment building, and that's what they were doing in relevant position way over there, flying in a circle, which is demonic pacing, and what is engineered light. I want you to see the multiple shadows. Those are demons that Mike LORENZ is fully aware of that are group stalking using helicopters. That's going to be a disbanded terrorist organization. They're not a legitimate police department, and they're listening to everything that I'm documenting about them inside of this apartment, and they're group stalking with the demon inside of number 55, and they're group stalking with all of them. This light activity is speaking to criminal surveillance. The entity is stalking by planes and helicopters. There's no airport over here. They're not taking off at any low elevation over the Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street. That's called amplified audible activity while I'm being molested with engineered light, while they're using commercial airline planes to maintain surveillance in the sky space with Alan Wapner. This is a corrupt government actor over the Ontario City Council who's engaging in the criminal system, the president of the Ontario International Airport. This is what the entity is doing, group stalking in the state. And this is what you see the Ontario Police Department doing on an ongoing basis, flying in circles, going psychotic, showing their mental illness. The more that I speak the truth about what they're going to be subject to, the people of the state are going to be subject to, and their condition while they do it. The demons that you've seen flying in circles right here over the top of this apartment complex, that's demonic pacing using planes, demonic pacing flying over this apartment building, which is not going to create an earthquake. That's terrorism. And Avanath Communities is going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted for it. This is the same light activity, again, you saw at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not the result of sunlight. Okay, that's the result of what is engineered light that's present day and night when you're flying directly over while I'm inside of the apartment. That's called group stalking, crossing in the path. And this demon of 55 is engaged in ongoing demonic pacing directly over the top of my head as though the ceiling sounds like it's cracking. That's called amplification. That's a demon, and they're all filled with demons. This is what the state is engaging in everywhere that I'm going. And they're engaged in federal stalking while they're listening to me document. And Mike LORENZ is going to be removed from the position that he holds. And the names of all of the demons that are a part of the Ontario Police routinely engaged in federal stalking and federal group stalking and monitoring by crawling into helicopters. It's 2:14 in the morning, and the entity is engaging in terrorism, terrorizing the American citizen who was blowing the whistle on them, and they're going to federal prison for it. And so is this demon. Again, license plate 5WUV715. This is the state actor. She's a group stalker engaged in surveillance by maintenance of presence in the apartment. And as I'm documenting her on podcast, the entity arrives stalking in helicopter. That's exactly what they're doing when I'm documenting the demons in apartment 41. The entity is arriving in helicopter, flying directly over my head again, doing so while I'm inside of an apartment that's under surveillance, invading privacy, sex offenders that are demon possessed, having no business having access to any law enforcement agency. No sociopath, no demon-possessed psychopath should be able to pass the academy and become a police officer, because that's all that's required right now. The entity is engaged in what is ongoing public corruption while this demonic system of surveillance is underway, and while I'm documenting it inside, the entity is hostile to the truth that I'm speaking, and they immediately arrive engaging in demonic pacing flying above this apartment building, and that's what I'm speaking to on the podcast right now. Again, it is 2:15 in the morning when they're flying over senior citizen complex in planes, commercial airline planes, where there is no airport. That's going to create the presence at that low elevation as though you're taking off over the senior citizen complex and flying in the direction west over Woodside Senior Apartments and flying in the direction east directly over this apartment building. This is demonic pacing, amplified audible activity, crossing path, and engineered light while they're engaged in what is criminal acts of obstruction of justice. And this is speaking to the disbanding of the terrorist organization, the Ontario Police Department. Their days are numbered, and Mike LORENZ, his days are numbered as chief of police. He's going to be removed. He's going to be removed. That's the Ontario International Airport. One plane after another after another. There's no taking off. They're rising in elevation as though they're taking off. There's no airport that's right here taking off. They're targeting this community by coming over to the apartment complex at a lower elevation, because Airport Drive, the Ontario International Airport, is in no position where you would be immediately taking off as quickly as they can rise in elevation right here. They would already be at a way much higher elevation if coming from the Ontario International Airport, which is not right here across the street. It's not behind here. It's nowhere near this apartment complex. They're targeting through the highly unintelligent conic that they never thought to be logically broken down. They're stalking in commercial airline planes in the specific environment over the property where the fake sun is rising and setting, and doing so while they're engaged in surveillance with the Ontario police, who just flew over this apartment complex with real-time knowledge of everything that I'm documenting. Again, a demon over the Ontario City Council is the same demon over the the president of the Ontario International Airport, who are centering operations of that airport over what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Keeping a woman under surveillance is sexual violence as well. While my genitalia is exposed and my panties are down, I'm engaged in personal private activity in here. Demons that are stalking in planes, listening to every word that I'm saying, federal stalking and criminal surveillance, being hostile demons, engaging in more criminal conduct that's exposing all of the entity to intensified prosecution, is also speaking to a perpetual sex offense committed by an entity keeping a woman under surveillance. Okay, the entity is doing so and is also simultaneously admitting to that criminal pattern of conduct while demons have a lack of self-control and cannot help but engage in that pattern of conduct. Those are the mentally ill that will be removed from law enforcement, and it includes the demon that is over the Ontario Police Department while a pattern of conduct is underway. That is the Mike LORENZ. Okay, so I want to make sure that you capture that. That was demonic pacing flying over the apartment and pacing over in this direction. That was pacing by demons that are stalking in planes and helicopters in this specific environment pursuant to federal stalking. Okay, this is exactly what the demon in 55 is engaging in while she is engaging in pacing, concentrating her presence. This demon is not going anywhere. She remains in the living room while I remain in the living room, following from room to room. That's a demon-possessed psychopath. That represents the population. That's the basis, again, the prosecution of, for example, the airports engaging in surveillance and federal stalking. This corrupt police department is going to be disbanded and prosecuted. They represent the state. They're acting in conformity to a P.O.C. and the entity is engaging in more terrorism harassment as a demon-possessed entity that's relevant for prosecution for terrorism, domestic terrorism. This system of surveillance is demonic at its core. This is the work of Satan in the U.S. over the government, using the people, relying on them, and then the entity engages in more of that, increases that terrorism, increases that criminal conduct, threatening the life of someone. Group stalking is the ongoing conspiracy to murder and kidnap someone. And they're acting in furtherance of it, increasing it, in fact, as you expose it. That's going to inform federal policy. That is speaking to what is the baseline for group stalking in helicopters by these police departments, and it is federal prison. All right. And Mike LORENZ is not accepted from federal prison time. I just want to make sure I continue to point that out. All right. It is currently 2:18 p.m. and it's the same for the demon over the Ontario International Airport. This is criminal conduct, criminal activity that you are a part of. You're group stalking when you're the chief of police over the group stalking department. You're a group stalker when you are the president over the group stalking airport. They're group stalking as an entity. They're also engaged in federal stalking. You will be prosecuted criminally and civilly. It is currently 2:19 a.m. We're at a senior citizen complex outside of the bounds of zoning laws. Commercial airline planes are hovering over this senior citizen complex. And also hovering over in helicopter, notably while I'm exposing this criminal system on podcast, which is, again, public information. And that's speaking to the timing with which the entity is engaging what is clearly outside of the bounds of existing laws. And again, the people of the state are not complaining about it because they're group stalking demons as well. And it is a well-documented pattern of conduct. It is currently 2:19 a.m. and this is P.O.C.